Welcome to the Business Alchemist podcast. On today's podcast, we're talking about something that is vital for the development of society and growing our economies. We're talking about founders. Quite often, we're going to be talking about the hidden life of a founder. Clearly, there's the public face of being a founder, which is, raising lots of money, having fantastic valuations, and living the millionaire founder lifestyle. But it's not always like that. Today, I'm joined by an amazing founder. His name's JY Delmot. He's the co-founder of HR Buddies, or BuddiesHR. And he's going to talk to us about what it's really like to be a founder. JY, welcome to the Business Alchemist podcast.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, and thanks for the introduction.
Excellent. So how about if we start, JY, by asking the question, what is it like today being a founder? Because clearly there's lots of activity in the market, or maybe not quite as much as there has been, with all of the influx of AI. There's lots of hype about what AI can and can't do. And I guess there's lots of ripples of fear out there. What would you say generically, what's it like being a founder today?
Yeah, very, very good question. It is quite hard to resist the hype. But I would say the game hasn't changed that much. Building a company is all about talking to users and just shipping the product that they want. And if you master those two big elements of building a company, I think that no matter what the hype is, whether it's internet, mobile phones, iPhones, AI or whatever, cloud, SaaS, etc. If you just build for someone, build a product that makes sense for someone that is ready to buy it, I mean, you're in business.
So really what you're saying is it's just it's old school. It's make sure that you have a product that someone needs, wants, that you're solving a problem for a key customer group. And as long as you're doing that and you can prove that, then everything should be A-okay.
Yeah. AI is just a tool and it's a technology. If it's required to achieve the business outcomes or to solve the pain that you're trying to solve for the given ideal customer profile that you have, then it's okay, but you don't have to push AI in everything that you do.
No, absolutely. And I guess that's one of the problems out there in the marketplace today, that we tend to hear AI with everything. If there isn't an AI badge, if there isn't an AI badge on a company, then there's something missing. JY, one of the things that really captured and got me really interested about you, I was reading many of your LinkedIn posts, and you seem to be almost a canary in the coal mine for founders who are desperate to go out there and find VCs, find big VC support. I know you've got quite strong opinions about the pros and cons of that. How about if we start with, from your experience, what's the downside of chasing big VC money?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I guess it's we get this, we all get this from the headlines, because when you start entrepreneurship, there are a lot of people like me who started just after just being a student at the end of the studies, or right after the studies. And so what you read in the headlines is Uber raised 100 million round, etc. You see the headlines and you're dreaming about it. You're I just want to be next. I want to be successful, and I want money. And so you think that the 100 million that they raised is maybe in the pocket of the founders, but that's not the case. And the more you educate yourself about like the VC world, the more you understand that it's really far from your pocket. But that being said, this is how you get started with VCs, I think, and how you're educated as like a normal person, just reading the news. And that means that when you think about startups at the beginning, you think primarily about funding and VC funding, and you tend to forget that there is another path, like the bootstrap way. And yeah.
Okay. So what you're saying is that many young people out of university or maybe after their first jobs see and hear what's being said about the big valuations and the big personalities in the marketplace, and they're enraptured by that, but they've maybe not been given the baseline education as to, well, if you want to grow a business, first of all, you have to find customers, and you have to find customers with a problem. So what was your entree to this? Because and we'll come along to your actual story itself as to how you've got to where you are today. But how did you personally get into even thinking about being a founder? Because I understand your background. You're a software engineer by training, aren't you?
Yep. Yeah. I think it all started when I was a student. So there was competition, like programming competition, like some local hackathon, and I joined them. I participated and figured out that this was kind of an environment when you need to ship fast and iterate fast. That was an environment that was only technical, because during hackathon you don't validate business idea, and that's generally a very terrible way to start businesses. But that's more for software engineer folks. That's another topic in itself. But I saw that I had some appetite for it, so I decided to register to startup weekends. And locally in the southeast of France, it was going very popular at this time. So I went to 1, 2, 3. Never been able to win and to gain something out of a startup weekend. So that definitely means that that's what they told you, but you don't believe it when you're in it and when it's the first time. But that's not because you didn't ended up in the top 3 that you're not going to be a founder or successful. So it's actually, funny insight, fun fact. But yeah, that's how I got started. And then, like, at the end of my studies, I kind of launched my first official company. After iterating during hackathon and startup weekends, I decided to launch something on my own. And yeah, that's how I got started.
And what was that first thing that you got started in?
It was a terrible idea. Like the kind of idea that you have when you're a student and that you skip the validation part, you only see a problem once. But it was basically, I saw lots of charities trying to do this in France, but it's kind of hard to make the model work in terms of pricing. So you either go on the charity side of things and not like the business side of things. But it was basically trying to provide safe walking itinerary on Google Maps. So that sometimes you have obvious zones in some cities that you know that's not better not to take this road to go to a place like from A to B. But as you can guess, like, how do you monetize this? I don't know. And it was kind of like this whole concept of guardians or angels that will like take some of their time to work with you to, if you have no other choice than going from this, like, through this place. But yeah, no business model. It was a terrible idea. It was a B2C idea, by the way. I enjoyed, like, most of my, like, the following companies are in the B2B field. It was my kind of the first project that died after a few months, even maybe years. Maybe I worked more than a year on this. But yeah, definitely a terrible way to start entrepreneurship.
Yeah, but I guess, but having said that, you got started, you tried something out, and you made mistakes, and it sounds as if did you have the self awareness at that stage when when you realized it wasn't working? Did you have the self awareness that you needed to do something different?
No. I think at the time, don't know how I explained it at the time, but I'm pretty sure that it was something like people don't understand what I want to do, and
So the
they
problem
don't
was
see
out there.
yeah.
So you're saying that you were still full of the belief in your product, and what you're
Yeah,
saying is that it was, you thought that the people didn't really understand how good your idea was.
yeah, yep, exactly.
So what changed then? So how did you get from that position to then realizing that you had to think and operate your business in a different way, or your businesses going forward?
Yeah, it took me a while because I think I launched my first company in 2015, and it took me until 2020 to figure out how to launch a company by dramatically improve like the success rate. Doesn't mean that everything that I launch is successful. Far from that. But at least trying to reach 50% maybe is something that we can all aim at. But yeah, like the next startup has been B2C. I was doing and still doing a lot of sports, and someone in my LinkedIn DMs pops up and said, "Yeah, I'm trying to launch something around sports app to bring people together locally, like to just practice sports together." So it was running, yoga sessions, and things like that. It was really working well at the scale of a city. So I'm living in Nice, south of France. So we launched there at the time, and it was very successful. Like it was that successful that people sometimes recognized me in the street as the founder of the company. So it was kind of funny experience. But the thing is that we spent as much in ads as we were doing revenue. So it was kind of hard to find a sustainable model. And because we were very young, I was 22 and I was the oldest of the of the four co-founders. It was very hard to raise funds, and we didn't have any clue at how to raise funds at the time. So we just decided to stop the company because it was not sustainable, and like we were four and doing zero profit, so weren't able to pay any kind of salary to anyone. So after working on it maybe 2 years, we stopped the company.
Okay. And I know from your history that you spent time with Y Combinator. Um, what was the trajectory from that sort of sports idea to getting into Y Combinator, and what was it like being with that esteemed crew of entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so very good question. After the startups, I actually so from there, the way I had idea is that I just had random idea and follow what I thought would be good. So I basically skipped like the validation part of things because I didn't know how to do, and I wasn't aware of like that I actually should do it. So when we closed the company for it was named RDV Sport. So we internally I developed a tool to grow on Instagram. So it was basically Instagram automation to do follow and follow, and scrapping of Instagram. And so I figured out that that might be a company in itself. So I called one of my software engineering friends, Fabien, that is still my co-founder today. I called him and say, hey, I knew he had a popular blog at the time. I know blogs are not that popular that it was in the past, but that was like an influencer that had a blog at the time. And I just sent him a DM saying, hey, you're an influencer and looking for followers on Instagram, so maybe we should talk. And so I immediately went to his apartment, like literally like the night on the day I sent this message. And we just what we do usually at Startup Weekend. It's like the business model Canva, and so we just fill it out with the idea that I just brought. And from there, we just iterated. So during that night, we actually stole a logo from someone else because at the time there wasn't ChatGPT to create logo for you. So it was kind of hard to figure this out. So we found a logo that we were really like, we fell in love with it. We just found a random name, put a landing page out there and just starting DMing people. So that was kind of the right thing to do. We didn't invest much in the product, more in the marketing and in the lead generation. But it was kind of not like a playbook at the time. We were just doing things intuitively, not being aware of what's the good thing to do. And we started to get traction. And one day, someone, like a few days after we did this, someone paid. So actually validated something. And so we started the business. So in 2 years, we reached 60K of MRR. We still had like it was still a side project because we were both employees in other companies having a side business doing 60K MRR. So it was kind of funny. And in 2019, we decided to leave our jobs. And guess what? 1 month after that, Instagram killed our our product. So we were basically starting from zero, and we had 2 years of 1 year and a half of pivot hell. We basically try anything around social media. So post scheduler, then TikTok came up and we tried to do the same thing on TikTok. Was very successful, but we got banned after 3 months. So very, it was faster than what it was on Instagram. But this time we stored the data. The first time, like the big mistake that we had after Instagram shutting down our automation services is that we saw a lot of data because of the scrapping we were doing, selectioning who to follow, etc. But it was just like we see the data and we just throw it out there. And this time we decided to store everything that we scrapped. And so when the business ended, of automation on TikTok, we were able to spin up very quickly a search for influencers, and we were the first influencer search tool for TikTok at the time in 2020. So it was during the COVID, so like TikTok exploded at this time, so like the timing was kind of perfect. But then we quickly, as you can guess, like the influencer and social media market has a high churn, and we didn't succeed at increasing the MRR more than 10 to 12K, something around that. So we decided one more time, like despite all the efforts we were putting in this, the revenue wasn't growing. So we were like, okay, time to do something else. Let's just keep this software. It still exists as of today. But we were like, okay, let's put it on the side and try to work on something that could go bigger. And we iterated with so many ideas at this time. I think every 2 weeks we came up with something new. And we really don't have a clear framework on how to launch things, so it was very, very painful. And one day we have one of our advisors and a mentor that told us, like, listen, guys, you need to take a step back and get outside of the marketing tech and get outside of the social media, like SaaS and stuff. So we listened carefully, and he introduced us to someone who were trying to get insights on marketing tech and who were looking for insights outside of the marketing tech. So it was kind of a founder meeting to share insights about market we knew about. And there was a good fit at the time. And we decided to actually co-found the company. And he was a sales at Algolia and lived the pain of commission calculation on the account executive side of things. And that's how we came up with our idea to go into YC. And once we decided what to work on, it took us maybe 2 or 3 months to have discussions around ideas, etc. Then we took a sprint of 2 or 3 weeks to investigate. We had 2 main ideas, and we were like, okay, in 2 weeks we'll decide what will start as an MVP and start customer discovery. So we did some market research and like business models, industries, competition, like kind of a market analysis of the 2 ideas, and figure out that the commission was the better one. So we just started, I think, in September, doing the discovery for September, October, shipped the MVP in November, and got the first customer in December. And that's when we decided to actually discussing about raising some funds, because initially we just wanted to raise a very small seed round, or maybe a pre-seed round, because it was like a first customer. And that's how we met like the business angel who told us to apply to YC in January, and how we went to YC in the end.
Oh, I see. So you went to YC already having the idea of, I think it was called Pallet HQ. That was the sales
Yep,
commission, the sales
exactly.
commission company. Okay, so you already had that idea. You'd already found at least one customer, and then you go to YC. So what was that like, going to YC and getting involved with those guys?
Very interesting question. So it has been very a life-changing experience, because we did have some learnings with my co-founder of launching multiple companies. But what YC force you to focus on makes the difference. So when they say like talk to users and ship code, it's actually talking to users and ship code, and it's not doing anything else. And they force you to ask you the right question, like how, like you pick up a North Star metric. So if you're making revenue, like it's revenue, and even if you're not making revenue, revenue might be like the best metric for most businesses, because it forces you, even if you're not making revenue, to report on the KPI weekly and say we are not making revenue, so we need this to change, and we need to find the quickest way to make revenue. And once you get revenue, you know that a good startup is growing like between 7 and 10%, something like around this kind of metrics every week. So you're like, okay, we are doing 100. It might be very small at the beginning. We are doing 100. Next week, we need to be 110. What are the actions that we should run to be at 110 next week? And this is the only question that should lead like the start of any company, is like, what's the quickest path to revenue? And then what's the quickest path to growing 10% every week? And if you're just honest about asking yourself those two questions every week, normally you should grow and figure out like how to make revenue very fast.
So it sounds like you're saying that the big insight from YC was absolute clarity on find customers and get them to buy something that you've got.
Yep. Yeah, and maybe to give you a more concrete example, like when you start your company, you have lots of way to grow your company, potential ways of growing your company. You could work on SEO, you can ship blog articles, you can do outbound, you can do Google ads, you can do, there are a lot of things that you can do, especially if you have budget. But when you ask yourself the question, okay, what is going to bring 10% growth week over week this week? Okay, if we ship a blog article, would that make us grow 10% week over week? The answer is no. I know no blog article that bring 10% growth from a week to another. So you're like, okay, so let's get back to the same question. So if we invest in ads, would we get 10% growth week over week? Maybe, but we need to figure out ROI very quickly, depending on the funds that you have on your bank account. So maybe you can have a quick experiment on running some ads. So that's kind of one of the things you can prioritize for the week. And second one is outbound. Like outbound is a numbers game. If you're doing it right, you can maybe generate 1% lead. So from 100% that you will be contacting, you will get 1% lead. And when you have one meeting, you know that you need like 5 to 10 meetings to get to a close one. So it's just a numbers game. You take the three founders. You're like, okay, this week to generate 10% growth, we need to sign one deal that is doing like 100 MRR. So to reach this, we need to contact 500 people. We are three. We are doing each of us 160, 66. And yeah, let's just do it. We block time in our calendar every morning, 2 hours, just doing about the three of us in the same room, and yeah, just doing everything that we can to grow the company. And when you're doing this, you notice that I didn't actually talk about products, because the product should be led by the feedback that you get from the customer's call, from like the customer discovery if you don't have an MVP yet. But this is how you design your product. Like every feature that you ship should bring revenue. When you look at your roadmap, you should rank the feature that people have been asking with the revenue associated with it. Meaning, like if someone told you that this feature was missing to actually move the deal forward, you should note that on the, definitely not like the deal size that you missed because of this feature. And if you keep hearing this every other week or every other day, that might be a good thing to ship to unlock and to increase your win rate on all the demos that you're running.
So that's quite a radical difference in thinking from prior to YC.
Yes.
So are you saying that did YC really drum that into your head that in effect, because listening to you, that sounds like you and your co-founders effectively have become outbound salespeople.
Yeah. That's I mean, for B2B SaaS, because there are other industries in which it might not work. For example, for B2C, like maybe ads might be more relevant than doing outbound, especially with GDPR in Europe.
Yes.
But
yes.
like, who cares? but yeah, if you're launching a B2B business idea, like the best thing to do is to stop before thinking about product roadmap features, just discussing with people in the field about what you're aiming to do, and just see if that resonates, and also how they perceive the market, because sometimes they identify a market gap that you can also identify very quickly by just asking the right questions, and asking clarification about the other vendors and competitors that you saw in the field. And yeah, if you're following this process, you will get fast to an answer like yes or no. This business idea can generate money. And then if you're in the VC kind of things, you're also asking an additional question: is can this be a $1 billion company? This is the additional question for VC backed founder. But if you're just bootstrapping, any kind of idea can scale easily to dozens of thousands of MRR, or like multi-million ARR, like 1 to 5 million ARR. Not easily, because it requires like a lot of work to reach that scale. Never been able to. The max that I did is 60K MRR, but still, like, this is like the best way if you want to launch your own company.
So what was it like then, JY, combining that intense outbound activity and speaking to as many people as possible, and at the same time, or maybe I've got that wrong, were you also developing in the afternoon then? So would you be doing outbound together in the morning and then in the afternoon developing product, or were you just not developing product at all and just completely focused on understanding what the market wanted?
Yeah, we were also developing. We were 2 technical co-founders and 3 co-founders. So when we did outbound, the goal was to generate like demos, and this was our third co-founder, that was the account executive at Algolia, who handled the demos. At one point, we got so much calls during the week. Like, he got so much calls during the week that we needed to do some demos and a customer onboarding as well. So that's where we ramped up our skills at just doing demos, sales, customer discovery, and also onboarding people. So basic notion of customer success. But yeah, that's how we were doing things at the time.
What was that like then? Because software engineers, on the whole, are not known to be the most extrovert of characters. So now you're probably a little bit different from the interaction I've had with you, but what would you say? What is it like for people who generally are used to sitting in front of their screens and building code, to then all of a sudden having to switch and getting on the phone, and I guess it sometimes was it on the phone or was it all outbound messaging, and what was that like?
It was mostly outbound messaging, so by email and LinkedIn. But the thing is that you can be like, I think it's like being an extrovert doesn't necessarily mean that you don't want to talk to people. It's like, because here we are talking about one-on-one discussions most of the time. It's kind of rare to come up in a call with multiple like people in the same call. People are just giving you like 15 to 20 minutes to talk about your idea and get some market metrics and industry insights. But yeah, I wouldn't say like, and that's what makes, for me, like, before I've been this engineer who didn't talk to user, but I didn't talk with them because I was introvert, because I would still classify myself as introvert, but mostly because I didn't know that that was the right thing to do, and because I was an introvert, that didn't came up in my mind, and I just wanted to ship code and believe that adding more features would actually be more appealing for more users. But that's kind of the opposite. But so I'd say, when you understand that this is what makes the company going from 0 to 1, and that's the probability of going from 0 to 1 by talking to user, like move from maybe 5 or 10% to 50%. You're like, okay, maybe either I want to lose again 6 or 12 months of my life, or I just talking to people and saving me 6 months if my idea is just shit, or just validating that it's working. So it's about the time that you have left. And I believe that even if you're introvert and you have 3 months left of runway, you will start talking to users.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what you're saying is that was really the key learning from YC. Were there any other big insights that you think it's worth mentioning and talking about?
Very good question. They give a huge list of advice, and I have they are displayed on my
Yeah,
room, like so I can read them every day. That's
yeah,
a gift from my co-founder for my 30-year-old birthday. So the first one is actually a good one, is launch now, because when you're a founder, you're like, okay, I need to add this more feature, or this feature is not working properly, or I don't have the XL import that one person mentioned vaguely in a call, etc. So you want things to be perfect, especially when you come from a software engineering background, when basically like school is teaching you to work in big companies. So they have processes, they have code quality tools, they have code coverage tool, etc. So definitely not the thing you should do when you're launching an MVP. And I see, because I'm doing some mentoring for the past few months, and I see that this advice might sound easy, like when we say it like that, but it's kind of, I get lots of bounce back on this idea when I say, okay, why aren't you launching now? Yeah, but this is missing, and so what? You don't have any user to tell you that it's missing. So if you don't launch now, you
yeah,
will never start the feedback loop, and maybe what you think should be included in the MVP, you will just deprioritize it and never launch it, because the users that you will have will never ask for it. So you really need to work on what is the MVP. And I had the chance to make a session with one of them, was one of the mentees that I have, and he came up with wireframes. I think he got maybe 70 wireframes, something like that, of all the views that he should ship before the MVP should be ready. And at the end of the session, I think we reduced this to 15. And he was like, wow, it's such an impressive exercise. And yeah, you're definitely right. This is like how you build an MVP. And because I feel like it's really hard to understand from reading a book what a good MVP is. And in his case, he was trying to automate very complex things that he could just do manually. And I was like, yeah, you can do it manually. How much time does it take to do it once? He was like, yeah, maybe 5 minutes. Yeah, 5 minutes the first time, but once you figure out the process, you can maybe do 10 in 5 minutes. And he was like, yeah, the first time it will take some time, but with time, manually, it will take less and less time. Okay, and how much transaction do you expect to happen on the platform if your launch is successful? He was like, okay, maybe 100 a month. I was like, okay, so 100 a month, you can do it manually. And let me tell you that you won't have 100 transactions during the first month, because as a first time founder, you're really like bullish on what you do, but trust me,
yeah.
like the first months will be zero. So you can just cut, like, I don't want to see the next 20 wireframes, because they all talk about this feature, and you will do this manually. You don't need to ship this and to automate this. And this is how you cut the fluff and just reach the market faster and start collecting user feedback to really identify what are the core features and where do you need to spend your time. The maximum, like, the more he delayed like the launch of the platform, the more he delayed the customer feedback. And if he was shipping an MVP that was totally wrong, like he would only know this after like a couple of months instead of a couple of weeks.
Wow. Okay, so So I guess that's
yeah, this is one of the key advice. And let me just read through the others to see if there are other things. So yeah, it's actually two advice, because the third one is do things that don't scale, and that was kind of the advice with the launch now. Like, even if you're not ready, because you don't have to automate everything.
Jay, just say that last one again. What was that last one again? You said
do things that don't scale. Yeah.
Do things that don't scale. Advice. Oh, can you explain that one?
Yeah. So in the previous example that I just mentioned is like when I told him, yeah, listen, you can do this manually, and he was like, yeah, but the when I will have 1,000 transaction, it will be hard. Yeah, but just hire an intern that costs not that much, and it will be quote unquote automated. And he was like, he was not feeling very confident at the beginning, but at the time he really understood that he needed to cut more features to actually make the MVP fit into 2 to 4 weeks instead of 3 to 6 months, so that he can reach the market faster. And that meant cutting features that he will have to run manually. But since these are tasks that are like maybe 1 hour a day, to save you like 3 months of development for something that might not be useful when you launch it, based on user feedback. And that's what it means to do things that don't scale, is to do things manually until it reach a normal amount of time that you need to start working on automating it.
I see. Okay, so what you're saying is, whatever it is that the customer is saying that they need and want, focus on that, even if you're having to operate at a one-on-one perspective, a manual perspective, until you're absolutely sure that you've got an MVP that people are willing to pay for.
Yep. Another example of that is I remember when we had our MVP ready for Palette HQ. What we did is that we launched a very basic dashboard, and we didn't have much analytics or way of formatting the data. And we had one customer that wanted the export like feature to have a very specific formatting so that he could use it in its payroll system. We could have shipped the feature, like spent a few hours or days shipping the feature so that it matches exactly what he wanted. But we figured out that he was the only customer asking for this. Since he was an important customer for us, we decided to do it, but he just needed to do it once a month. So we were like, okay, on the first of every month, I'm going to do the export manually for him, and waiting for the real feature to come up, because we are going to ship analytics feature, of course, one day. But waiting for this, I can just do it once a month manually. That's not, and so I saved us like multiple days of work, and we could redirect that to features that actually impacted the win rate when we were trying to close deals.
Wow, I see. So I understand what you're saying now. So if there's only one or two customers requesting something, that's where you're saying, okay, give it to them. Don't code it. Just do it for them manually when it's required on a monthly basis or whatever. Okay, well, that's really cool. And was that one of the learnings? And was that something that came across to you as being very different until you heard that at YC?
The do things that don't scale, I think that this one and the launch now, this one have been already understood, because when you just launch ideas as a software engineer, you figure out after a few iterations that most of your code went to the trash. And so you need to actually do things faster. You understand that something is wrong, but you still don't understand that it's talking to people, but still you adapt your process to ship as fast as possible. So you try to cut features to reach the market faster, to get like at least to know if it's a failure or a success faster than usual. So that's something I think I teach myself, but YC just put words on it because it's kind of hard to formalize it in a proper way.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like these three key points about outbounding, about launching now, in order to get your MVP out there, and also doing things that don't scale manually. That almost sounds like the framework for you being more focused on bootstrapping rather than raising big money. Is that why you feel so strongly, would you say, about bootstrapping over and above going out there and chasing the big buck with the big names?
Yeah, I'd say it's one of the reasons, because what we did with YC is that, following like the YC process, we raised funds for this company. So we raised 6 million at the time, and it was great. That was what we wanted to do at the time. We hired like a team of 15 people globally, so it was really great, like running the team, especially remotely, with all the challenges that it brings, and to kind of just scale the company, try to learn as much as we can as like first time managers, trying to create processes within the company on the dev side, on the customer success side, on the sales side. It was, yeah, really interesting and such an experience. But when you stop and when you look back at it, you're like, okay, I did this because I had the money. But if I had the choice to do it again, maybe first, if I cannot undo like the fundraising, I would just keep the money and wait for a stronger product market fit before scaling the company. But yeah, second, I wouldn't raise fund, because what I ended up understanding is that when you raise fund, that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be more successful. Like the amount, and that's something YC is telling you like every single week when they talk about fundraising. It's like the number that you raise, and if you're successful at raising money, that doesn't mean that you'll be successful. And the example that they give every time is Coinbase. Coinbase at the time didn't succeed at raising funds, and still we everyone knows what Coinbase is worth today. And the founder was that desperate that the percentage of the company, the number of shares you could have for $10,000, was actually crazy. I don't remember the exact number, but I remember that it was so, like, if you had purchased this, you would be like a millionaire for sure, but like much more than that, I think, from what I remembered. And so that means that like the money you raise doesn't is not correlated to success. And once I understood this, I looked back and asked myself the question: would I be able to run this company without raising funds? And I would say that the question for Palette HQ would be mostly yes, because still we needed a bit of funding to maybe hire 1, 2 engineer and 1 person on the customer success team, because like customer success onboarding clients was taking a lot of time, and I was the one in charge of it, and sometimes delegating to my other 2 co-founders, and I needed to focus more on the product and on the engineering side. So we did needed to raise a couple of funds for this company, because like the way commission companies work, it's not pure SaaS. It's, I would say, maybe 70% SaaS and 30% services, because you need to onboard the customer. They will have their comp plan that changes every quarter or every year, so you have updates to make in the software, because it's a really complex software to handle all the kind of possible calculation you might encounter. So this is why we needed to have more structure in terms of professional services, so customer success at the time. And yeah, that's mainly why now when I launch a company and I ask myself the question, do we need fund for this? Most of the time the answer is no. Maybe if you're launching in AI, you're training models, etc., fair enough, you need funding. But if you're just launching like a ChatGPT wrapper or just a regular B2B SaaS, not sure why you need funding. Even the sometimes you have the fear of missing out, so the FOMO, because you have a competitor that raised funds, etc. But with our new company, we saw a competitor that raised 5 or 6 million that died a few months after, because he wasn't able to reach the scale that VC-backed ventures like companies are like expecting, like the rate to grow. So they just closed the company, and guess who got the customers in the market? The one that are remaining, including us. And so that's why I don't believe, especially in saturated market, I don't believe you should raise fund anymore.
Hmm. Okay, so you're saying that even now today, as you look back at your time at Pallet HQ, you now know or feel that you didn't need to raise that 6 million, and would you say then that if you hadn't raised it, would that have been from your perspective, a more successful launch then?
Yeah, we should have raised way less than that, maybe 1 or 2 million, maybe closer to 1 million, because we didn't need more money than that, and the 5 additional million that we had made us like make a lot of mistake, because we needed to scale way faster than what we were ready. And we didn't have product market fit. When we took the money, the assumption that we made is like we have customer that found product market fit. So with more money, we might find it faster and scale even faster than they did it, because we might learn from their mistakes. And that's now like not going to happen. No, I know that it would haven't been successful, because this is not how you run a company. But at the time, it made sense for me, and yeah, that was such a huge mistake.
Wow. And did you realize that as you were going through the development of Palette HQ, or was it after you left that you look back and you thought, oh, okay, that was a mistake? Did you realize your mistake at the time when you were going through it?
No, because you're so bullish on your company and you don't have the mental bandwidth to think about this. You're just in it, and you just need to fix the problems that you see appearing by, well, like when you need to hire 3 engineers to handle 40 clients with 2 or 3 people on the customer success team, that you have meetings to decide on the next features that you're going to ship, that you have meetings with your sales co-founder to check the sales pipeline, learn more about the insights, like the product insights that they have heard in a sales calls. You don't have time to think about, are we going in the right direction? We already asked ourselves the question when we raised the money, and we were like, okay, now we got the money, we just need to execute the plan. And so we just execute the plan.
Right. Yeah, yeah, got you. So it sounds like, so now I'm really understanding why you're so out there on LinkedIn shouting from the rooftops that you've really got to get the you've really got to get the bootstrap business model right. Get that right first, and then when you really have the decision to make for scaling, then at that time you can start thinking about angel investment, VC investment, etc. Is that, have I got that right? Is that why you're so outspoken about that just today?
Yeah, I think like VC should be considered as a tool, because it is like venture capital is a tool. So, and you really need to understand, like as a founder, it's your duty to understand like how to use this tool. And the thing is that because of the headlines and the hype we have around AI and VC stuff, we don't teach ourselves, and we don't spend enough time understanding what are the ins and outs of raising funds. And it's kind of becoming the default for startups, whereas it shouldn't be the default for startups. It should be considered as a tool among others, and see if it fits with what like your current need at the moment. Will it help you grow the company with not too much dilution? But yeah, really figuring out like what are the criteria for using it, and if it's suitable for your use case.
And would you say then that the majority of starters, founders out there, would you say that they understand what you've learned, or would you say the majority that you interact with, assuming that you do, um, still have golden eyes for the VC path?
Yeah, it's the latter, because I see that in the comments of my posts. I post about FanDuel, a company that exited for 465 millions, and the founders got zero from this operation.
Oh.
I saw a lot, and I just write the whole story about how this happened. So it's a combination of liquidation preferences and all this VC stuff. But the thing is that in the comments, a lot of people have been asking, please explain me how this can happen. I don't understand how a company could sell for 465 million and founders getting zero. So they didn't really got zero. It means that they got zero in terms of money, but in terms of learning, maybe they did some secondary exits on the Series B, Series C, D, E, etc. But at the final exit, they got zero from the transaction, and people struggle to understand this, whereas it's very simple to understand. So what I reply to those guys is just check out liquidation preference on Wikipedia or on Google, and just don't make a heart attack, please.
Okay, so you, from the feedback you're getting on LinkedIn, what you're saying is that you're surprised that so many people, so many founders don't seem to understand what you've realized as a result of your own personal journey.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so 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 where are you now then? So you're obviously you've come out of Palette HQ, and you've set up a new startup, BuddiesHR. Do you want to tell us about that? First of all, how about telling us, how did that get started and why did that get started? Because we always hear, don't we, about pivoting. And it sounds, because obviously I've spoken to you before, it sounds like there was a little bit of a pivoting maneuver that went on after Palette HQ. So why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. So when we left Palette HQ with one of my co-founders, so Fabien, the one that was co-founding company since 2000 and I don't know 17 maybe, like it's a long story. But we left the company with my co-founder, and we just, like, from everything that we lived and all the experience that we had from Palette HQ, one like field and topic that we really enjoyed most during the company was company building in itself. So designing like the culture and the values of the company, ensuring everyone was performing at its best, and was like has a clear role and expectations within the company, even if we were a really early stage. And we just had one kind of high level mission that was make employees happy at work. And we, with this mission in mind, we were like, okay, if we were about to build a software to achieve this mission, best, like, hypothesis number one, the best people to talk about this topic would be HR people. So we just did what we did with our previous company. We just opened LinkedIn and email and did some outbound to just talk about make employee happy at work, what it means, how it could translate. And we just learned a lot of stuff about HR. So what's the typical day of an HR person? What are the duties, like the responsibilities? And quickly we understood that employee engagement was the field that we were looking at. So we just deep dive into employee engagement, asked more questions about it, figured out employee recognition was a huge part of employee engagement. And so we just, following the discovery process, which we just heard about some painful, very vertical problems. And so the very first app that we launched, because we decided to launch in Slack, because one of the main learnings that we got from HR is that it needs to be integrated into the existing tools. Because it's such a pain to make everyone on board on a new software. So if it's not included in Slack, it doesn't exist, basically. So we decided to launch a very simple Slack app to solve a very vertical problem of celebrating birthdays and work anniversaries. I know when I say it like that, it may sound like a joke, but it's not. My job for a couple of months have been to celebrate birthdays and work anniversary. So yeah, and after doing this, we were looking at other employee engagement verticals. So we figured out employee recognition might be one of them. and also creating more team bondings. And during the COVID, we saw a tremendous hype around Donuts. That was basically a random coffee matching app, and we decided to ship a competitor, but because it was still very popular at the time. Since then, they moved more enterprise, so we don't hear them like a lot of time during the deals that we have right now. But still, it was very popular at the time. And yeah, that's how we came up with the first kind of minimal suite of employee engagement with birthday celebrations, employee recognition, so through kudos and shootouts, and random coffee matching to create team bondings between people in the company, especially useful for remote company, of course. And yeah, that's how we got started with BuddiesHR.
Wow. So it sounds like you'd obviously learned the YC lessons, and clearly you've still got on your wall there the key credo, and it sounds like you followed that playbook to the T, because it sounds, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds as though the first thing you did was make contact with HR people before you even built anything. Is that right?
Yep, exactly.
So you went straight for discovery, asking questions of the perceived marketplace that you thought you would go after. You got that information, you got that feedback, and only at that point did you start to build. And you started to build just on Slack and just for birthdays and celebrations. Wow. So that must have felt like a very different process then to the Palette HQ process.
Yeah. Yes and no, because we with Palette HQ we also ran discovery. Like first thing that we did with our third co-founder at the time. This was, yeah, we took two months to do some proper customer discovery, and we figured out, and this is kind of an interesting metric, but normally as you reach 30 customer discovery calls, you should have a fair idea of is the market is needing what you're trying to build or not, because normally this is when something very strange happened, but you already know the answers to the question you're asking, and this is a great sign that you actually reach kind of the maturity around the topic, and that you're ready to ship an MVP. Like if you're asking the right question and you can guess the answer before asking it, that's a good sign that you did your job properly at doing customer discovery. And that's how you get like a fair idea of how painful is the problem, how broad is the market, and you start to have some kind of solutions in mind to solve this pain.
And when you say discovery calls, you don't mean, I just want to make sure that I've understood this, you don't just mean outbound questions and then an answer back. Do you mean actual physical calls so that you can have the conversations with the potential market?
Yeah, it's question like to start, like when I say customer discovery, it's really like kind of the definition in the mom test. So if people who are listening to this trying to launch a business want to read the one book to read to launch a business, it's the mom test. It's a book about asking the right question, like the painful question, the one you don't want to hear the answers, to figure out is your idea is a good idea, and how to validate an idea. And we just applied the playbook as we did the first time with Palette HQ, to just understand like what's the typical day of an HR, how employee engagement fits into this schedule, what percentage of their job does it represent, how painful it is. If tomorrow I was about to say, okay, you need to cut costs, what are the first software that comes to your mind where you will just cut the costs? That kind of questions, non-biased questions, because if I come up and say, here, here's my idea, what do you think? Like the answer wouldn't be very valuable, because since people are very polite, they wouldn't be telling you that it's a bad idea. They will try to build with you a better version of it, maybe, but it's very rare to encounter someone who say, oh, this idea is just shit, you should be working on something else. Yeah. Or sometimes you have, you have, and that's gold insights. But if it's only happening once or twice, you might not be hearing. But it happens sometimes when someone say, yeah, employee engagement is shit, you should be working on this because it's such a pain for me that I could be talking about this problem for hours long. And when you hear that, you're like, okay, I'm all ears, I have all my time, let me like run me through your process and all the painful things that you have to do. And sometimes it's exploratory, so you don't take something out of this, but sometimes you uncover a pain that you didn't expect it at the beginning. And it's the it is why we shipped a Slack app for birthday celebrations. We got over 40 calls. We got 10 people who told us they were doing this manually, and it came up naturally. We didn't ask, hey, how are you handling birthdays? We were we were just asking like, okay, run me through a typical day of an HR person. And they were like, okay, so first time in the morning, I connect to my HRES to see whose birthday it is. And then I craft a message and then I post it in a Slack channel. I was, what the hell? Why 25% of people we're interviewing are telling us that? So we're like, okay, it sounds like a good idea to get started with something. And we just launched this, and this is how stuff happen during customer discovery. Sometimes you want to do A and you end up doing Z because of all the things that you can learn during the process.
See, personally, I think that's a very fascinating mindset. And I ask myself, how come we're not teaching our kids that that's the way to build a business? I mean, I don't know about you. I wasn't taught that at school. My kids weren't taught that at school.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it sounds like a very obvious way, probably the most obvious way to build a business that's got real value.
Yeah, and I have another example in mind of this. When we started Palette HQ, the hypothesis that we did, because when you do customer discovery, you write your hypothesis and then you try to figure out non-biased question to verify your hypothesis. And first hypothesis that we made is that our ICP might be sales leaders because they are the one in charge of calculating sales commissions. They are the one discussing commissions all the time with the reps. So that's our ICP. Let's do the outbound to sales leaders, so head of sales, director of sales, etc., and let's figure out what they have to say about sales commission calculation. So we scheduled calls with head of sales, and what they, like 90% of them told us, it was like commission calculation was already automated. And we're like, strange, because most of the time, like, that's not what the market is saying, because like there are huge vendors that raised dozens of millions of dollars to solve this issue. So can you run me through your process? Like, what do you mean by automated? Oh, yeah. Maybe I can introduce you to someone in finance because they are the one handling the stuff. But it's pretty fast. It's already always on time, etc. Not something big. So we could have stopped there, but we took the introduction and got introduced to CFOs, head of finance, and finance analysts, etc. And then when we asked them the question, okay, so we heard that commission were automated at your company. Can you run us through the process? And they were like, what? Who told you that it was automated? Like, it's such a nightmare, such a painful problem. Like, I have to gather data from multiple systems to run crazy spreadsheet formulas. Then I have to split every spreadsheet into one spreadsheet per person because I cannot like give the commission of salesperson A to salesperson B. This is something that I cannot share. So I need to have one email thread with each rep that will contest because they will think the calculation is not accurate, but because the CRM data is not cleared and clean, then the calculation cannot be correct. But that's not my problem. They know that on 20th of each month, they need to have the CRM clean for me to run calculation, etc. So the list of pains was so long, and we were like, oh, so that's what it meant, like automated. And so hypothesis number one became our ICP is a finance leader or someone in the finance team. And from then, we only did discovery on finance leaders. So that's why it's important to make hypotheses, like 1 to 3 hypotheses, and then come up with non-biased question to actually figure out stuff and see where it leads you to. Because if you would have launched the MVP for head of sales, like our sales leaders, it would have been a whole different product that wouldn't have met the market because they're not interested in calculating sales commissions because it's already automated, you know?
Wow. Yeah. So, okay. So I get, and that's a very classic sales question, isn't it? Okay. Do you have this problem? Well, first of all, do you understand what the problem is? And the people you were speaking to initially didn't understand it was a problem because they weren't dealing with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a heck of a lot of
Yeah.
sense. Wow. Yeah, that's another great lesson. It sounds like you just learned that one rather than getting that from YC. You just learned that yourself.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I had a mentor that was always mentioning the way I do it now, but was always mentioning the mom test. He was like, just fucking read the mom test and apply the playbook. And it took me a while before actually doing it. So if there are some listeners out there, like they are, if they are wondering if they should read the book, yes, just read it.
Yeah.
And this is the only book you need to read. You don't need to read dozens of books about entrepreneurship to launch your company. Just read the mom test and start asking questions to the right people, and you will figure out very quickly like a business idea and like how to launch your company.
Well, that's great advice. That's fabulous. Excellent. So the other thing that I
And
know,
maybe to get back on,
mm,
yeah, just to get back on the topic we discussed earlier about software engineering and introverts, as you saw, the stuff we discussed, most of the time, technical people think that it's a sales skill to actually do customer discovery, but the way you run customer discovery interviews is a whole different process than running a sales process in an established companies, because you already know your ICP, you already know what are the main selling points, you already know what are the differentiation with competition, etc. And so I really wish that more technical people would launch their companies and stop thinking that they need a non-technical co-founder, because even if your non-technical co-founder might be doing more things, maybe if there's an MVP to develop, you'll be the one in charge of doing it, and maybe you will skip the outbound part of it if it's not required. But still, join every customer discovery interview just to listen and also ask follow-up question, because this is kind of company knowledge. Like if you're a co-founder and haven't run through like the discovery process, the difference in terms of knowledge between the co-founder will create weird discussions during product roadmap, because you won't understand why a feature is required, because in your mind this is not how the product should be, whereas it has been clearly required by the market. And so at this point, it's just, are you trusting your co-founder enough to ship this feature or not? Whereas the question should be, are you convinced that the market needs this feature?
that makes a lot of sense, and I see a lot of parallels because in the world of sales, which I'm involved in quite a lot, I often argue that good selling is actually the process that you've talked about. So rather than assuming that the people you're selling to have got a requirement and a need for your features and benefits of your product, the first place is really to do what you're doing during your discovery calls, which is to understand what's the problem that these people are actually having in the work environment, in their working processes. So that makes complete sense. But I also completely agree that early founders shouldn't be outsourcing that work to anyone else, especially not to highly paid salespeople who are probably often not the right people to be asking those first level discovery questions, because it's not the way that they naturally think often. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So the other quick area that it would be maybe interesting to discuss, JY, if that's okay, is I know that you've got a real interest in the lifestyle aspects of being a founder, because you mentioned that to me. What would you say? What are the lifestyle challenges that a founder generally has to face that you've got particular views about?
Very interesting question. I would say the number one is mental health, and that's tied to so many things, because what you want to avoid when if you raised fund or if you didn't raise fund, like the only thing that could be killing the company is you having a burnout. So this is the one thing to optimize when you're a founder, because it's very easy to increase your mental load and to end up being burnt out. And this is, yeah, really a day-to-day work that you have to do with yourself. It can materialize in lots of ways. People have different passions, etc. But one way that worked for me is to that has been really helpful is to find your own definition of success, because when you know why you are doing things, even if you're working a lot, uh, it will be much easier to avoid burnout, because it's not because you work 70 hours a week that you will like experience burnout. It's because you don't know why you're working 70 hours a week, or because the 70 hours a week you're working are not effective and you're not productive enough to leverage those 70 hours. And so having a clear definition of what success means to you as a person, not as a business, has a huge impact on mental health. For me, it's three things. It's health, wealth, and family. Health is really optimizing, like, so mental health is part of it, but it's also practicing sports regularly, eating like in a clean way, not too much fat, etc. Like, can find all of advice online. I'm not a doctor or a
A health guru.
specialist. Yeah, not a health guru, and I'm not Brian Johnson. But yeah, it's, yeah, mainly like sleeping well. So yeah, when you have kids, and I'm about to be a dad in a few months, so I'll experience this myself. But having a proper sleep, not being under a sleep deprivation, eating well, and practicing enough sports. So this is like part of the health thing. Then you have the wealth thing that is covered mostly by business, because you still need like, it's, I think it, I personally think it's a lie to say that money doesn't come with happiness or won't make you happy, because you still need money to live. And if you aspire to do fun things and to provide things to your family, then having a decent level of wealth, not being like Elon Musk or Bill Gates, but having a decent level of wealth. And the third one is family, because who cares if you have dozens of millions on your bank account if you cannot be there when someone needs you? So it's really like the to find a balance between the three, and to maintain a good health while building wealth and being present for your family. So this is my definition of success. People might actually have different weights or have other things in the equation, but this is how I think about success. And so that's why when I see bootstrap businesses and the outcome that are expected from you and your business, I feel like I need to do some, how to say that, to put things on the side when it comes to family and health that I don't want to do anymore. I've been through this, and this is when you suffer from something from your lifestyle. This is when you have a danger of experiencing burnout. But if you're not aware that health is something important, because like most of the time when you launch your company, when you're young, you're not aware of the impact of eating well. You can basically do not sleep for 3 days long and still be shipping features properly. Not properly, but still shipping features. And you can drink alcohol, etc. But at the end, like when you figure out those three things as your definition of success, and that needs to be balanced. So I don't care about being the richest man on the planet. I just want to have enough money to be healthy, and my family to be healthy, and spend very precious time with my loved ones. And yeah, I would say that's kind of the lifestyle challenge like that I experienced, because there is not a single week where you need to where you don't need to choose between one thing or another. So you will, like, balancing things is a day-to-day job. And one example that I like to give is maybe you can be working a lot, 50, 60, 70 hours a week. But what I enjoy most when I work a lot is about being flexible. So, for example, if your wife got a day off and it wasn't expected, and you look at your calendar and there are nothing you shouldn't have to be doing this after special afternoon that you could be delayed to tomorrow, why not just taking a day off and enjoying life with her, and that's it. And you maybe be working more on Saturday night or on Sunday night, don't know, but just to compensate things. But that's fair to do, and that's how you end up balancing things.
Mm. Well, those are really good points. One of the other things that you mentioned in the transition from Palette HQ to Buddies, you talked about the it being really important to you that people are happy in companies. Is that another? Would that be another factor that you would bring in from a health perspective? That if you've got a happy workforce and you've got a culture that is positive, depending on how you would define that, is that another important principle to you when you're thinking about bootstrapping a business?
Yes, because, and this is mostly because when you have your own definition of success, you tend to project your own definition to others and still need to have empathy to understand that people might not have the same definition, but you aspire because you believe that your definition of success is right because this is the one you believe in. You project it to others, and so yeah, I do think that creating a great company culture is also about allowing people that you hire among the companies match like your definition of success. So yeah, when I look at building my companies, we don't have employees yet because we don't need to, but we are not against employing people, hiring people. But when it comes to company culture, yeah, I'd like people who join the company to practice sports, to eat well, to take care of their loved ones. That I don't want to have like professional jerks that are just working 70 hours a week, neglecting families, etc. That might be a red flag instantly. You could be fired for this in in my company. But I'm totally okay if the person is not enjoying practicing sports. I mean, this is my definition of success, but I'm totally okay that people are not doing it. Like, as long as they have passions or things that I enjoy doing outside of work, that's okay, because I don't want to have someone working 90 hours plus a week on something that might collapse, because this is how business is done. And so yeah, really people that optimizes for the three main pillars of success.
That's excellent. So we've covered quite a lot of topics, JY. Finally, what's the next stage for Buddies HR then?
Yeah, good question. So we do have some revenue milestones in mind, because we are currently at more than 30K MOR. There's like, of course, 500,000 ARR, so at 41.666 that we're waiting as the next milestone. Then for us with my co-founder, there's the 60K MRR one, because we never been able to go through the after the 60K MRR, so I'm really waiting for it to take a revenge on that. And then I think the big milestone will be the million ARR, and might happen maybe in 1 or 2 years with the current growth that we have. Like, we are working like all day long to actually improve the growth rate and to reach it as fast as possible. But yeah, if we keep the current growth rate that we have, should be like in 1 or 2 years from now. And yeah, we'll be very happy when this happen, and hopefully we'll have employees. So this is for revenue milestones. But when it comes to product developments and future of the company, for now we just have a Slack, like an employee engagement suite of Slack apps. And so we're about to release one more Slack app. So for vacation tracking, this is not something huge, but will be a great addition to the solution we are providing right now. But the next steps for us at a high level would be to enter in the performance review software market. And this is something we'll be doing in Q3 of this year. And then we'll have a couple of iterations in it, because it's a tough product. There are a lot of features in it, and depending on the user feedback that we'll have, We already did the customer discovery, so we are ready to ship right now, working on the wireframes and on the solution we'll bring to the market. And yeah, we'll just do as we do, like ship the MVP, cut all the features that aren't necessary, and just getting feedback, improving the software, etc. So the feedback loop might take a bit longer because it's a bigger software than an employee engagement one. So it might take 6 to 12 months. And after that, the plan would be to, so it's still hypothetical because we still need to run customer discovery to validate this, but the goal would be to go in the HRES market to kind of unify everything that we did until then, to have both the HRES with the performance management integrated and the employee engagement suite like all in one.
So who would be, for the people watching this now and listening to this, who would be the ideal ICPs then who might get most benefit from where you guys are at the moment with your Slack, the Slack application?
Very good question. We do have two ICPs. Number one is any HR person working at a company between 50 to 200 employees. This is what we observe from the usage that we have. This is kind of the sweet spot where you get most value from what we're doing and what we're building. So if you're an HR person in a company of this size, definitely check out what we are doing, because you will like automate lots of things and build like a great culture using our apps. And second ICP might be people like I was in my previous company, hiring 15 people and trying to figure stuff out when it comes to company building, company culture. So every founder, CEO, or C-level of very small companies and startups trying to find initiative with a good ratio between time spent and impact on the company. This is all about what we are doing, and installing our app dramatically improve employee engagement, especially in remote teams. And it takes really like 5 minutes max to install and set up. So like the best initiative in terms of ROI that you could run for a company culture in your small company.
Well, you've touched on the subject of employee engagement. That's clearly a big issue right now, because we know that the Gallup workforce survey has just come out, and the reports from that are not great. It's saying that employee engagement across the board has dropped, and it's especially dropped in the managerial and leadership communities. Is there anything in your app right now from an employee engagement perspective that you would say gives companies an advantage in terms of being able to get to the core of EE quicker than the big survey applications that most big companies have got out there today?
Yeah, I think it's all about giving the power to HR to implement the feedback that they have through survey. And that means that they need to work hand in hand with leadership, because when it comes to employee engagement, it's culture related topic, and culture related topic most of the time are top down topics. And you need the leadership to embrace the culture you want to instill in your company for it to work. Because like if you only have one leader that is running like the whole playbook to have a great company culture, great processes, etc., and not the others, you will have subcultures within the same company. And if you try a bottom-up approach, like whenever you will encounter a manager that is skeptical about like the HR initiative, it will be very hard to make the initiative scale among the other teams and going up and up.
No, that makes a lot of sense. For those people, it sounds like your two core ICPs, HR managers who are running companies with between 50 and 200 people, and founders who are building small businesses and could benefit from the insights and the applications that you have to help them build, I guess, effective cultures and effective employee engagement within those small businesses. Is there anything, just as we close up now, JY, is there anything that we haven't covered? We've covered quite a lot of topics. Is there anything that you would like to, is there anything else that you would like to say that that maybe I've forgotten to ask?
No, I don't think so. I think we cover most of the topics we wanted to discuss. So yeah, thanks again for the invitation, of course, and yeah, really enjoyed this talk.
No, you're absolutely welcome. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think for me the highlight was the conversion from the YC background that you got. I think, and the fact that you
Yeah.
took that and applied that and got so many learnings from it, and of course you combined that with your own experience out in the marketplace. So I think that's to be congratulated. And it sounds like that you've clearly already got a really effective bootstrap business, and I'm sure you're going to go from strength to strength on the basis, on the back of the solid views and ways of running a business as a founder that you have. So I've got no doubt that you're going to be successful, JY. You already are, and I'm looking forward to tracking your process as
Thank you.
time goes on. So all the very best.
Yeah, thank you so much.